The main party leaders are criss-crossing the UK, appealing to undecided voters in key seats as the election campaign enters its final 2 days. Conservative leader David Cameron said an SNP-backed Labour government was a chilling prospect as he appeared with Boris Johnson in London. Ed Miliband said Labour would not end up borrowing more than the Tories if he formed the next government. Clegg said the Lib Dems would guarantee stability after May 7. The Deputy Prime Minister warned of the prospect of a second election before Christmas if no party won an outright victory and either the Conservatives or Labour attempted to govern on their own. UKIP leader Nigel Farage is spending the day in the Kent seat he hopes to win for his party, after taking out a 2-page advertisement in the Daily Telegraph urging people to vote with their heart. With 2 days to go before polling day, David Cameron has insisted he will put the country first if he fails to win an outright majority. Ed Miliband said he did not believe Labour would borrow more money than the Conservatives plan to if he wins the election. He also made a plea for people to vote Labour to save the NHS. Clegg said an EU referendum was not a coalition red line for the Lib Dems. The SNP suspended 2 members of their party following scuffles at a rally held by the Scottish Labour leader in Glasgow. The Green Party urged voters to send a message on climate change. Lucy Powell, the vice-chair of Labour's general election campaign, denied suggesting Ed Miliband could break his election pledges. The Independent said it would back another Conservative Lib Dem coalition, while the Evening Standard endorsed the Conservatives. The head of the Bow Group Conservative think tank endorsed leading UKIP candidates. The Democratic Unionist Party said a commission on the union would be a red line in any post-election negotiations. Polls suggest the election is still too close to call, and in the final days the parties are focusing on their core messages amid speculation about post-election deals if there is a hung parliament. In an interview with the BBC, Mr. Miliband said he did not accept the Institute for Fiscal Studies assessment that debt would be £90 billion higher in 2019/20 if Labour's plans were implemented rather than the Conservatives. And referring to his 8-feet stone monument of pledges, he claimed his campaign vice-chairman Lucy Powell had been wrong when she said no one had suggested carving them into stone meant he will absolutely not break them. The Labour leader also acknowledged for the first time that he might not win an outright victory on Thursday, by making clear his plan to abolish non-DOM status for foreigners would be non-negotiable in any post-election deal. He spoke as Labour was out campaigning on the NHS, publishing what it calls a leaked document suggesting 98 of England's 240 trusts are expected to have run up a combined deficit of £750 million by next April. Speaking in the target seat of Bedford, Mr. Miliband said the NHS was facing a financial bombshell, which would result in 2/3 of hospitals having to make substantial cuts this year. Appealing to undecided voters as he seeks to improve on the 258 seats his party won in 2010, the Labour leader said the election would be the closest we have ever seen in our history. Mr. Cameron told BBC Radio 5 Live that the NHS had made real progress in the past 5 years. We have put the money in, we have got rid of bureaucracy, which has kept money on the front line, he said. The key thing for the future is to make sure we have the strong economy that can support the strong NHS. The Conservatives, which won 307 seats in 2010, are targeting seats held by Liberal Democrats, as well as appealing to UKIP supporters and Conservatives who might not bother to go to the polling station, in an attempt to win an overall majority. While SNP MPs were perfectly entitled to make their voice heard in Westminster, Mr. Cameron told the BBC, it would be unhealthy for a future government to be reliant on a party that did not want the UK to be a success. Mr. Clegg said his party would do a lot better than commentators were suggesting as he launched a 1,000-mile dash from Land's End to John O'Groats, taking in key marginal seats in Cornwall, Somerset, South Wales, and the Midlands. Opinion polls suggest the party could lose up to half of the 57 seats it won 5 years ago. Amid speculation about possible coalition deals in the event of another hung parliament, Mr. Clegg said the party with the greatest mandate in terms of seats and votes won should have the space and time to try and assemble a government. The Lib Dems, he told Radio 4's Today programme, would be prepared to talk to other parties, except UKIP and the SNP, in a grown-up way, saying they would be guarantors of stability at a time of great uncertainty. But he warned of a shambles if the Conservatives or Labour try to form a minority government and rely on the informal support of other parties to get their legislation through Parliament. The last thing Britain needs is a second election before Christmas, he said. But that is exactly what will happen if Ed Miliband and David Cameron put their own political interest ahead of the national interest.